Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to, we obviously are pleased to see this development take place in Townsville, and and there is a great deal of bipartisanship about that particular project. But I do have to say that I do think that in discussion of northern development, that I think that we need to be clearer-eyed. I think that, as has been often said, there's been a great deal of perhaps intellectual adventurism that has gone on in our discussion of the Northern Australia, which really has not brought home the bacon. That there has been perhaps too much an emphasis on the grand and the big project as the thing that is going to turn around the future of Northern Australia, and that has in fact really resulted in nowhere near the development that perhaps could have taken place. What we need to do is to move away from some of the more grandiose projects to move to a more fine-grained understanding of the environment and indeed of the population with which we are dealing, and come up with a response to Northern Australia that is perhaps less conducive to the grand press release, but far more conducive to sustainable development. And there's no doubt that there is, that Northern Australia is, as said recently by a couple of authors in the conversation, Andrew Campbell and Jim Turner, that the development of that Northern Australia is a very special part of the world. It has amazing heritage and values, and yes, there is enormous scope for development, but the project of the focus on dam building and big infrastructure interventions is not always the way. That is not really the way that is going to develop this. Now, I'm particularly keen to talk today. Well, I'm more than happy to talk about that. But as I said, it's got to be an intelligent. For example, the CSIRO have some very interesting things to say about that. So that, for example, by investment in genetics and in technological innovation, in investment in science around forage quality, nutrition and growth, that they estimate, for example, that the productivity rate for the beef industry can be increased by 40 and 50%. Now, it's not as grand. You know, having a group of scientists there from the CSIRO beavering away, doing the research, getting the quality of the product better, finding out how we match the soils in the northern region with the sustainable availability of water. It's not quite as glamorous, but it is indeed what is going to bring home the bacon more. In Western Australia, we've got, and we're not saying it's all agriculture. I was very pleased to see, and I think we've got a bipartisan or tripartisan view on this, that the Northern Australia won't be the food bowl of Asia, but there is certainly enormous opportunity to develop our agricultural product. And as I say, the CSIRO contribution here that we could get a 40 to 50% increase in our beef productivity, I think is very, very worthwhile. And we've got to be looking at more vertical integration. I look in the Kimberley, we see extraordinary work being done in places like Quilto Station, Yeater Station, Fossil Downs, where they are indeed finding out where their good soils are, finding out where the sustainable water supply is, and without giant damming systems, are able to provide a level of forage quality that is in seeing that they can turn off finished off cattle, cattle that can be slaughtered at abattoirs that are currently being built out of Broome. And we would note that there are abattoir programs across the top of Australia. We can get more value add from our beef product. We can create more jobs for the communities up there, particularly the Indigenous communities, jobs which they indeed will find that they have indeed expressed great interest in, helps them develop their assets in the north of Australia. We do need to consider the Indigenous population in the north. In Western Australia, the Indigenous population is 40% of the Kimberley, and it's 12% in the Pilbara. So I think a lot of the work that has been done in Northern Australia perhaps has not taken into account, as much as it should, the need to integrate those to ensure that the Indigenous economy is integrated with the broader economy. I'd certainly think that one of the things that we've got to see is a lot more investment in the science. We've got to be prepared to consider the evidence that has come before us from the CSIRO, that if we set up huge dams, that there is going to be a lot of downstream consequences. For example, the impact that will have on the fishing industry alone will be severe. I mean, you don't take large streams of nutrients out of a system and not expect this to have a consequence. So we do need to, we need to look at the cost benefit. I mean, we could build these great dams at massive expense, but if we invested that same degree of money into more fine-grained projects, would we get a better outcome? So I think the importance here is to recognise that this is a unique area, and the sort of responses that we might have seen worked in the 1950s in the Snowy Mountains scheme aren't necessarily the responses for Northern Australia. And that the Northern Australia has particular advantages, natural advantages that we do need to exploit. It should be an area, for example, where renewable energy is an incredibly important part of the energy mix. We take in look at Pilbara. We look at the Pilbara where there is a great need for additional energy resources, and yet it's only now that we're coming to see that we need an integrated, and I'm very pleased that our Northern Australia Committee really pushed this idea of an integrated power solution for the Pilbara, so that it gives us the opportunity to hang off large-scale renewables, exploiting the climatic conditions of the north to create a benefit. I just want to also include a bit of a plug for the inclusion of Western Australian universities in the Grow North initiative. I'm very concerned that West Australian universities have been kept out of this at a meaningful level. They need a seat at the table in the formation of the partnership, and I have been talking to the chairman of the Northern Australian Committee about that. And we don't just want to be junior partners. The three universities in Western Australia, Murdoch, Curtin and UWA, have agreed to come together to form one entity so they can participate jointly in this. Because, as I say, underpinning, we need to get the science right on this. We need to get the science right on the climate. We can't ignore the climate. We can't ignore the weather. We can't ignore the additional challenges that are coming our way. We need to make sure that we, in fact, can adapt to those. We're not going to be able to do that without an intelligent engagement in the science, and we want to see Western Australia being part of that scientific development.